one of the Titans so far has escaped capture.
That was to come.
Well, that was you're right. That's when dudes first really started putting on the lipstick and eyeliner.
Welcome to the Polynation broadcast. I just love it when stuff works. Got a chill show lined up for you today over here on GroundZeroPlus.com. We're chilling in the greenhouse, as we do on a Sunday. This is my church. The mycelium of underground sounds. This is Unfolding by Bad Not Good. I'm your host, Polly. Welcome to a Sunday Greenhouse episode. It's still really hot, so we're not going to move around too much. But have you ever heard of E8? Well, you will later. GroundZeroPlus.com. Got a music-heavy show today, because that's what Sundays are for. And if this E8 thing doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what will. We'll talk about that later.
pockets of light springing up in different parts of the world, that these will be invisible planets on this planet. And that as we or the world grow colder, we can take invisible space journeys to these different planets, refuel, and come back. We're talking about an underground. And the purpose of this underground is to find out how to preserve the light, life, the culture, how to keep things living. You see, I keep thinking
To me, like traveling and you need a chef and a DJ, and then you are calm. You are calm. You are calm. Can a DJ, can a DJ, can a DJ, you are calm. Can a DJ, can a DJ, can a DJ. To me, like traveling and you need a chef and a DJ, and then you are calm. You are calm. You are calm. Can a DJ, can a DJ, can a DJ, you are calm. Can a DJ, can a DJ, can a DJ. Can a DJ, 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 can a DJ. For some reason, somebody thought it was clever to give me sex cases.
chef and le DJ.
Underneath gray skies, where warriors rise, but legends never die. The concrete remembers every name it knew, from the Northeast, 216 written in dew. Chambers deep in royal pulse, the echoes in the street crown a silent waltz. Bloodlines swing like a pendulum, you see them. It moves where the real ones dwell. Let us all recognize the power it brings, beat by beat. Salute to the cardiac kings.
It's the Polynation Broadcast, GroundZeroPlus.com. It's a Sunday. We're chilling in the greenhouse, contemplating, recuperating, and disaster eliminating. That's what we're doing. There's so many disasters everywhere. What are we going to do about it? Well, here's one thing I like to do about it, and that's think about something completely different. Like the fabric of our reality, or what is consciousness, or, questions that I can't conceivably answer, ever. I like thinking about those. I guess you could say it's almost like a form of meditation for me, to get away from everything. Things I often contemplate when I'm surrounded by plants that I planted, that I made healthy, that are blooming. It's like getting intelligence from your accomplishments, in a way. There's a lot of mental gymnastics we gotta play out there these days. I didn't even know I could do these kind of gymnastics. But they're there. I'm not talking backflips, I'm talking, it's borderline contortionist. Not only do you have to suspend your belief sometimes, but you have to suspend your mouth. I'm learning that the hard way. Well, you don't have to suspend your mouth, but what you can do is make things a lot easier for yourself if you suspend your mouth. But I won't do that here. There are no suspensions in the greenhouse. Everything is up for grabs. Everything's on the table. And later on, I think, I'm going to probably just spend most of the first hour today chilling in the greenhouse at groundzeroplus.com, hanging out with my best friends, like minds, and listening to some chill tunes, perhaps maybe some of them thought-provoking, just to get you sort of in the mood for what we're going to talk about today, which is only one thing really, but I'm going to spend a chunk of time on it, because, well, it's got to do with sacred geometry, and perhaps I should explain why I'm so interested in sacred geometry before we get into that video. So I'll do that first as well. Many of you in the greenhouse probably already know why I'm fascinated almost to an unhealthy degree with sacred geometry and the numbers and the math and how it relates to music and color and plants and everything you can possibly imagine. But some of you may not know. How does somebody end up interested in sacred geometry, and why is it important? It's no big deal if it's everywhere, right? Well, I'll explain that. It's kind of a long road, but I'll shorten it. I'll make a long story short. Because it seems to me, looking back on it, on my life at least, and what I was interested in, that it was a natural progression that I would end up being fascinated by sacred geometry. And I think some of you out there who are, audiophiles or are really into plants or into sacred geometry even will probably agree or have some even similarities from their own life's development. That's just a theory I have, but we'll see probably by the end of the show how many of you out there have similar acquaintances with, things like food, color, geometry, music, math, and how it all ties together, and how it all interacts individually with the individual. Don't be fooled. You are an individual. No matter what anyone says, you're not the same as everybody else. You're unique, like a fingerprint. And that's for a reason. And that's one thing sacred geometry doesn't do, actually. So, the combination of consciousness and sacred geometry equals you. That's just my opinion. That's the theory I'm working with. I'll explain this E8 thing and how it ties into geometry later. And I'll run down the history of how I ended up here. Of just being fascinated with... Because once you see sacred geometry, it doesn't go away. You see it everywhere. And you also hear it. I'll explain all of this later, I promise. It'll make sense by the end of the show. It's the Polynation broadcast, groundzeroplus.com. Here's Back in the Day by Kuniyuki? Yeah, that's it. Sorry, my Japanese is off today. Kuniyuki Takahashi on the Polynation broadcast. Be right back. Polynation broadcast. Here is Give My Regards to Brooklyn by Aja Monet. GroundZeroPlus.com.
This is a Manhattan-bound J local train. The next stop is Van Sicklen Avenue.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
I'm the humble. I be having these dreams where I'm people watching with Basquiat, sitting on a curb on Bedford Ave, sipping piraguas, talking about never thought I'd live to see the day. Could've sworn I saw Otis Blackwell walking out the corner store on Atlantic Ave, smoking a Lucy, whistling a new tune for Elvis to cover. And it was gully right, cause I caught Biggie on a stoop in Bed-Stuy selling dope to a hipster with Ready to Die tatted across the pale of his arm. Hadn't seen a hoopty in a while when old dirty bastard pulled up offering me a ride to the pink houses. And suddenly a handsome mocha man sitting on a nearby fire escape calls my name. I could tell it was Jackie by the Dodger stitched across his chest. He told me I miss home and then it all fades to black. When I woke, the blue moon was sprawling out of its hiding place, limbs hanging over the shoulder of night. After lovers had abandoned their bodies, laughing in the corners of each other, I was a Fulton lamppost staring at the sky's cheekbones, shy of stardust through the blinds of J-Train tracks. This is how it feels to dream. To dream of being moonlight in East New York, a concrete plant collecting whispers of bodega blues, darling sunrise tickles drumbeat hips, swaying through the air of Sasson. And I envy the morning swag. Boomboxes hold our windows open in July. We face our fears on the cyclone called romance, a stroll along the boardwalk in Coney Island. Head nods pay respect on beat. Boys playing Scully in the street. We used to buy our kicks from City Line and roll a blunt for all our fallen soldiers and spark a generation in love with spray cans and naked tenement buildings. Graffiti the spirits of hustlers with bubble letters. Mr. Softy Summers meant stealing Abuela Santo offerings for Tweety Bird on a popsicle stick. Playing hopscotch on the broken sidewalk, eavesdropping on front stoop gossip, hair braiding, fingers dancing between strands of air. Brothers get caught in barbershops, and gangs get caught in street corners, get caught. Thrown against the hood of cop cars, seen one too many handcuffs on the wrists of brown and black skin. We dock slave ships on our shores daily. We know Rikers Island like a country home. I'm convinced my father conceived me in Kings County arraignments while daydreaming of freedom. I owe my life. I owe my life to the woman who stopped my mother on the B-56 on her way to the abortion clinic and told her, "You have a poet coming."
I'd say the thing that you bring out most in me that makes me smile is belief. Is belief that anything can happen in moments of doubt. You've always made me believe in myself, and that makes me smile. And you've always been a giver. You've always been so generous. That generosity has never shifted, whether you had no money, and there have been times when you didn't have no money, and when you had a little money in your pocket. It doesn't shift.
She a Leo. Aja is this word worker, wizard, with woman warrior, all intertwined. And it's like she's been. And everybody just has to catch up. She already been.
it's not just words that we speak, but actions that we take.
I felt seen, I felt warm, I felt inspired, I felt heard, I felt full.
Aja's always seen me. I've never had to be anybody else around Aja but myself. And yeah, a living poem.
A visionary of timeless proportion. As I grew, our relationship did as well. At times in my life when I was lost and addicted, she found me. When I was fighting the world with my back against the wall, she urged me to remember my beauty. I've always seen her words as soaring testimonials of love and pain and redemption, but above all, love in all of its radical, transformative manifestations. She is the true definition of a truth teller. And Ogun and Orisha, a channel for those before us and those who will come after.
The voice of justice, of freedom, it just rings with you.
A person has to be really brave in this world to completely and totally be themselves. And ever since I've known Aja, she's been that, just this bold force, reflecting back beauty in the world and also articulating our pain.
And love you always, hermana.
Polynation Broadcast, GroundZeroPlus.com. That was Give My Regards to Brooklyn by Aja Monet. In my opinion, an incredible poet. It would be interesting to hear somebody sing those lyrics. But it's kind of a heavy tune, too. I mean, when you listen to the subject matter, at least. So I wanted to just before the top of the hour, just take you through, without sounding too narcissistic here, a short journey on how I ended up being so fascinated with sacred geometry. And believe it or not, it starts with photography. My dad gave me a camera when I was very young, probably 12. And I started taking pictures. Started noticing patterns. And learned how to compose images to almost, as a photographer, you're kind of telling other people's eyes what to do. So looking at photography from that perspective led me to music. Now the first jump is, I don't know, maybe not so, like, it seemed like it fits with photography, but hear me out. I went into music, and I instantly thought, as soon as I learned how to play anything meaningful on the guitar, I thought, hey, this is kind of like photography, but it's for your ears. Because when you record a song, that's like taking a picture. When you take a picture, you're recording an image. And so, a lot of time was spent with music. And unfortunately, the music industry is not a very nice one to hang out in. And so I ended up leaving that. And one of the things that I always really like to photograph, and one of the things I really like to do while listening to music, is eat. And food. And cooking. So I went to chef school. How does this tie into sacred geometry? I'll explain in a minute. Bear with me. I went to chef school, got my papers, started playing around with foods and molecular gastronomy and how to plate things and why people plate things. There was a rule in plating that says you never put an even number. You always put an odd number of things on the plate for aesthetic reasons. What does aesthetic mean? It means pleasing to the eye, because you eat with your eyes. And when my first teacher told me that you eat with your eyes, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. If you're blind, do you eat with your ears? Like when you hear a sizzling steak come to your table and you're blind, you're technically eating with your ears at that point. So now I love taking pictures of food. Now I love cooking food. And one of the first things I started, and also how food, you can influence the way food tastes by certain music. If I know that sounds weird, but like there's a reason why they play certain music in restaurants. Anyways, I'll get back to the music thing in a second. So from cooking, that led me to, well, when you're really passionate about cooking, you really care about where your ingredients come from. And a lot of those ingredients happen to be vegetables that grow on plants. And I thought, well, why do I need to rely on someone else to grow what I want when I can just grow it myself? And that led me into the world of plants. And plants led me into the world of mushrooms. And guess what both plants and mushrooms have in common? A stupid amount of sacred geometry. At this point, I still don't even know what sacred geometry is. So now I'm into plants, mushrooms. Of course, that guides me into other things nature-orientated. And started noticing similar patterns everywhere. And I asked, what the hell is going on? Then I came across people like Randall Carlson. That's him driving by on a motorcycle right now, actually. And he started talking about all these numbers and sacred geometry and frequencies. And I also learned that tuning your guitar to 432, like you can literally feel the difference in the neck of the guitar when you play it. The vibration is different. And that number comes up everywhere in sacred geometry. It's even in the pyramids. It's everywhere. So in a way, I feel like my life's progression to end up here at the interest in sacred geometry has almost gone backwards. Like I learned about everything that sacred geometry can do, and then I figured out that that's what's doing it. So that's why I'm into sacred geometry. I hope that made sense, because I could have made it a lot longer. But yeah, I'd rather listen to some music and chat with you guys in the greenhouse over here at groundzeroplus.com. Become a member. You're supporting the platform. Many other great hosts and shows, including Clyde Lewis and Jimmy Jeans and Rich Rounds, and the list goes on. It's not endless yet, but it does go on. And you don't have to be a member to come over to the website groundzeroplus.com. You can check out the host page, see who's here. Billy Ray Valentine, pretty sure he's here. JP Bovenzi's here. I think Paul Begley's here. Anyways, go check it out if you haven't already. And probably more shows coming. That's what I'm assuming, at least. And you know what? There's, as far as I'm concerned, plenty of room. Especially if it's good. So come on down. GroundZeroPlus.com. Check it out. You can listen for free. You can check out the host page for free. There's a bunch of free stuff. If you're not sure yet, just check it out. You'll probably like it. So now that we've set up why I give a shit about sacred geometry, let's get back into some more music and just let that soak in. I think I want to restructure how I want to approach this. I have a video here. I don't think we're going to listen to the whole thing. It's like 22 minutes long. But I'm thinking maybe the first 10 minutes or maybe 7.5 minutes. Just to give you an idea of why I'm almost borderline obsessed with sacred geometry. I'm even going to start drawing it soon. I just need a compass. Is there a discreet way to get a compass delivered to your house without somebody thinking you're a Freemason? I'm not a Freemason, okay? There's nothing free about the way I live at all. If I was a real Freemason, I wouldn't be living at the bottom of a giant brick oven in the slums of Toronto. So that being said, here's Save Me by Monez and John Kennedy on the Polynation broadcast, GroundZeroPlus.com.
Justice came to take my hand, but couldn't reach it. If love was in the master plan, why can't I feel it? When you're not around, it gets me so very. Won't you just
GroundZeroPlus.com. Polynation broadcast is live every weekend, 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Saturdays and Sundays. Here's DJ Vadim. So, I forgot to tell you how music ties into sacred geometry before we move on to this clip that I have that we'll just stumble our way through it, and I'll just probably interrupt it when an ad comes on, because I'm guaranteeing you there's going to be some kind of ad that comes on for this. But I had so many questions keep popping up in my head when I've watched this video like 3 times now, and I'm hoping somebody in the greenhouse maybe can help me wrap my head around it. So how music relates to sacred geometry? Well, there's this thing called cymatics. If you've never heard of that before, look it up, because it will blow your mind. Sound can produce geometry. Literally. It can arrange things into a ordered structure, not unlike things, I don't know, like the flower of life, the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, and they all happen at frequencies that match the other geometric numbers. That's how it relates to music. I forgot to put that in there. So let's get into this video. Now, I'm hoping that this video will translate without the visuals, because clearly I've watched it, and I don't think you need the visuals for a lot of the things in here for you to get why this video is really messing with my head. So here it is. It's about decoding reality. It's on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure this channel is AI generated. So I'm not gonna name it, because I caught you. But it's still pretty cool. Anyways, let's listen to it, and I'll if an ad comes in, I'll stop it and interject, and I'll probably interject a lot. This might be annoying even, but I'll try to do it in a way that's geometrically sound, if you know what I'm saying. So here it is, Polynation Broadcast, GroundZeroPlus.com. We're gonna figure out the newest, I guess you could almost call it like the newest platonic solid, E8. Here we go.
In 2007, a physicist introduced an idea that shocked even the scientific world. A geometric shape so complex, it might contain everything. Every force, every particle, even gravity.
This particular pattern of charges, in 8 dimensions, is actually part of the most beautiful geometric structure in mathematics. It's a pattern of the largest exceptional Lie group, E8. This Lie group is a smooth, curved shape with 248 dimensions. Each point in this pattern corresponds to a symmetry of this very complex and beautiful shape.
This shape is called E8. It exists in 248 dimensions, far beyond anything we can imagine. And yet, it's built on perfect symmetry. Inside it, every known particle lines up with mathematical precision, almost like they were always meant to be part of the same code. Even more surprising, this model suggests there are other particles, ones we haven't discovered yet, hiding in unused parts of the pattern. But here's where it gets even more interesting. This isn't just about particles. The idea suggests that reality...
This is your brain when you're strong.
See? Told you that was going to happen. They try to get you with those. That's alright though. So far, I don't have anything to say yet because they haven't really introduced... Think of it this way. If you look at E8 from a specific angle, you'll see a cube. At least that's what I'm getting from this. So this is kind of... anyways, give it more time. I promise it'll make more sense.
Not be made of stuff at all, but of structure. That matter, motion, even time could emerge from how geometry behaves across dimensions. E8 is a highly symmetrical mathematical structure with 248 components studied in advanced geometry and group theory. It belongs to the most complex cases of exceptional Lie groups known in mathematics. Its importance lies in symmetry. In physics, symmetry is not aesthetic. It defines how particles behave, how forces interact, and how conservation laws operate. The standard model of particle physics is built on symmetry groups, SU3, SU2, and U1, which describe strong, weak, and electromagnetic interactions. But these groups remain disconnected from gravity. E8 offers something different. A single structure large enough to embed all these known groups, and gravity inside one unified system. Garrett Lisi's proposal was to map all fundamental particles and forces onto E8's internal coordinates. He demonstrated that known particles like quarks, leptons, gluons, and photons could be arranged within its geometry. Even more, he identified extra components in E8 that didn't correspond to existing particles, potentially new, undiscovered elements of the universe.
The geometry of this shape could describe everything about how the universe works at the tiniest scales. And the pattern of this shape, living in 8-dimensional charge space, is exquisitely beautiful. And it summarizes thousands of possible interactions between these elementary particles, each of which is just a facet of this complicated shape. As we spin it, we can see many of the other intricate patterns contained in this one.
In his model, particle interactions are not separate forces, but rotations and translations within the E8 shape. Electromagnetism, for example, isn't a separate rule. path through this geometric space. Gravity fits in as part of the same internal logic. This makes E8 not just a descriptive tool, but a generative one. Instead of writing equations for how forces behave, one would navigate the geometry and observe how structure determines behavior. The model hasn't been confirmed experimentally, but the mathematics behind it is solid. What makes the E8 model compelling isn't just its internal logic. It's the fact that structure alone, without added parameters, can produce behavior that mirrors physical reality. When particles are positioned within E8, their interactions follow paths dictated by the geometry. These paths are consistent with how particles behave in quantum field theory. Mass, charge, spin. They aren't input manually. They emerge from how each element sits within the system. This is a shift in how physical laws are understood. Instead of writing rules that govern matter, we're looking at a framework where matter behaves according to position in a pattern. And this isn't isolated to high-energy physics. Nature across scales operates using structured repetition. The same logic, symmetry, transformation, minimal variation, appears in crystal growth, biological forms, and even neural activity. What we often call natural design is usually a product of efficient geometry repeating itself under constraint. E8 is an extreme case of this, a maximal symmetry pushed to its mathematical limit. But its relevance goes beyond particle physics. It reflects a principle that shows up everywhere: pattern as foundation. Patterns are not limited to theoretical models. They appear consistently in the physical world, across all scales, from atomic lattices to galactic formations. This recurrence suggests that structure is not a byproduct of matter, but a primary organizing force. In biological systems, forms repeat with mathematical precision. The Fibonacci sequence governs the arrangement of leaves, the spiral of shells, and the structure of pine cones. Each step in the sequence builds on the last, producing growth that remains efficient and compact.
In terms of applications, Fibonacci numbers appear in nature surprisingly often. The number of petals on a flower is typically a Fibonacci number, or the number of spirals on a sunflower or a pineapple tends to be a Fibonacci number as well. In fact, there are many more applications of Fibonacci numbers.
The same logic is found in hexagonal structures, like those in honeycombs or basalt columns. These formations arise because hexagons fill space with minimal surface area, maximizing stability and efficiency. They emerge spontaneously in cooling lava, crystallization, and even in cloud formations over the poles.
Okay, I just want to jump in here and say, when he said over the poles, he was referring to Saturn, where there is a perfect hexagon kind of, I guess, storm cloud or cloud from atmospheric formation, whatever you want to call it. There's a hexagon on top of Saturn. It's pretty weird. And the thing about taking up the most space in the most efficient way, and how that's following a rule, that's the law. That's the word. Like, to me, that's like the foundation of every single thing that we can conceive, which, granted, is not a lot compared to what we can't. But this E8 seems to be like a universal lattice, where depending on your state, time, motion, and angle that you're looking at it from, basically generates everything. And it's nature is the proof. That's what I just wanted to say that. So let's keep going.
Physics, symmetry governs atomic bonds and molecular shapes. Crystals form when particles settle into a lattice that balances forces in the most stable configuration possible. No central design is needed. The structure emerges naturally from internal constraints. These are not symbolic patterns. They are structural outcomes. the result of systems optimizing for stability, flow, or replication. In every case, the result is predictable geometry. This consistency is what makes geometry more than just a language for science. It becomes evidence that the universe organizes itself through repeating, scalable forms. It also bridges the abstract E8 structure with the visible world, both operating by the same principle: internal symmetry producing external behavior. Recognizing this allows us to move beyond visual aesthetics. Pattern is not decoration. It's a signature of how information, matter, and energy organize across domains. When a structure repeats in a stable environment, resonance becomes possible.
Work today is broken.
Also, while we're listening to this ridiculous ad for something I'll never use, hang on 1 second. There we go. Also, I just want to point out, can anyone else hear that AI has an accent? I don't mean accent in the way that, like, hey mate, I'm from Australia. I don't mean like that. I mean, it's because it can have any of those accents, but I can still hear something in it. It's, I guess, the way it pronounces some words, or the way it reads when a person doesn't know how to use punctuation and proper grammar to type what they want the AI to say. Can anyone else hear that? Because I can still hear it, and it's so far. I don't know if I've heard many cases that you can't hear that it's not generated, or at least spoken by AI. I mean, there could be a human telling it exactly every single word what to say. But likely, if you don't have to, you won't, right? So, who knows? This channel, or at least this video, is definitely not being read by a human. It's not being read by a human. It may have been coaxed by a human, but not being read. And on that note, let's continue, because I'm just fascinated by this stuff, especially how it relates to music. Like, it made me think, man, I've been writing songs and playing music in front of people very loudly, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't realize the effect that it was actually having on the actual reality that was hearing it. And now I played around with AI music for a bit with Suno. But when Rio played it backwards, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. So I kind of stopped. But I can still see a use for it. Just saying. Anyways, let's get back into the video.
Metaphor describes the synchronization of systems that share compatible frequencies, whether mechanical, acoustic, electromagnetic, or biological. In physics, resonance occurs when a system is exposed to a frequency that matches its natural oscillation. This amplifies its behavior, increasing motion, energy transfer, or structural alignment. Tuning forks, bridges, and atoms respond predictably to this effect. At the molecular level, resonance energy stabilizes chemical bonds. Electrons distribute themselves in patterns that minimize energy through shared configuration. This principle underlies the stability of aromatic compounds in chemistry. In biology, resonance is observed in neural oscillations. Different regions of the brain synchronize during perception, attention, or memory formation. Coherence across networks allows efficient information flow.
We measure coherence in order to identify functional networks, because we believe that coherence is somehow telling us something about the communication between these networks. Measures of synchrony are used as a diagnostic tool, both for the identification of functional networks, but also for the diagnosis of abnormalities in such networks.
Even in ecosystems, cycles emerge through resonance. predator-prey rhythms, seasonal migration, circadian biology, all stabilize around repeated interaction and internal timing. These examples show that structure and rhythm are not separate layers. They reinforce each other. Geometry provides the framework. Resonance maintains its function over time. In this way, resonance becomes a stabilizing feedback loop. It filters out incompatible patterns and strengthens coherent ones. Whether in materials, thought, or systems of life, resonance aligns complexity into persistent order. This is not limited to sound or vibration. It applies to fields, forms, and information systems, operating across different scales. When resonance appears in physical systems, it enhances function. When it appears in cognitive systems, it enhances awareness. The logic is identical. Alignment, through frequency, creates integration. Stay with me because next we'll explore one of the most recognized visual manifestations of this principle, a structure known for its symmetry, proportion, and recurrence across ancient traditions and modern science, the flower of life.
If you haven't exercised in years, you have to start small with my beginner-friendly Tai Chi class.
Across ancient cultures, one geometric symbol appears with unusual consistency, the flower of life. It consists of overlapping circles arranged in a hexagonal pattern, each intersection forming precise, equidistant nodes. This isn't decorative art. It's a tightly packed system of symmetry and proportion, governed by simple repetition and radial expansion. The structure encodes multiple geometric forms within it. From it, one can extract the vesica piscis, the seed of life, the Metatron's cube, and the Platonic solids, all considered fundamental in classical geometry. These shapes are not symbolic in themselves. They are mathematically significant and used in architecture, crystallography, and spatial modeling. The flower of life demonstrates radial coherence, a property where every point relates to the center and to the whole. This reflects the same principles seen in molecular structures, in cellular division patterns, and even in astronomical arrangements.
And this flower of life symbol can be extrapolated from a tetrahedron array to be the fundamental principle or the fundamental geometry of the structure of space-time. I had actually come to extrapolate the mathematics to get the proper answer for gravity and the mass of the proton and the radius of the proton and the gravitational coupling constant directly out of this metric.
Its presence at ancient sites, Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, India, suggests independent recognition of the same principle, that complex systems emerge from repeating simple units, governed by fixed ratios. This geometry also models wave interference and resonant field patterns. When circular waves intersect, they naturally form interference patterns that resemble flower of life symmetry, with nodal points of stability and cancellation. These intersections define energy concentrations, just as lattice nodes define stable bonds in matter. In modern applications, this geometry has been studied in frequency field modeling, cymatics, and antenna design. Its efficiency in space packing, signal distribution, and field overlap is measurable and applicable. The pattern is compelling because it unites form, function, and recursion. It's not an aesthetic choice. It's a spatial solution, an efficient way for energy, information, and structure to coexist without conflict. From particle models to memory networks, the same logic appears: order through symmetry, growth through repetition, coherence through resonance. For decades, neuroscience focused on neurons firing and chemical signals traveling between synapses. But in recent years, that model has expanded, not by changing what we see, but by changing how we interpret it. In 2017, researchers from the Blue Brain Project published a study that revealed something unprecedented. When neurons process information, they don't just activate randomly or in simple chains. They organize themselves in geometric formations, structures that correspond to well-defined mathematical objects.
Into the research itself, Blue Brain team discovers a multidimensional universe in brain networks up to 11 dimensions. Using algebraic topology in a way that has never been used before in neuroscience, a team from the Blue Brain Project has uncovered a universe of multidimensional geometrical structures and spaces within the networks of the brain.
These formations are known as simplicial complexes. At the lowest level, you might see a triangle, 3 neurons firing together. But as complexity increases, the shapes scale upward. Tetrahedrons, 5 simplices.
Okay, it's getting a bit away from E8 here, and the rest of it is very fascinating. It's an AI channel. They did it, but you know what? It's pretty good job for AI at explaining it. At least some of it to me. I'm still kind of lost a little bit, but here, I think what you can do is take this E8. Let's call it like all of the platonic solids mashed into one 234 dimensional shape. Yeah, I can't imagine it either. But depending on which angle you look at it from and what color light you shine on it and what frequencies or you see what it is that you see, which could be anything. So, yeah, sacred geometry. I would love to see somebody draw one of these E8 things. Just because they don't really draw it in the video. Spoiler alert. But I'm going to leave that video where it is because now it talks about similar geometry that's in the brain, and then you find the same geometry in the universe, and then what it doesn't say is that you find the same geometry on like literally 2 inches under the forest floor where all the mycelium is. Same geometry. And it also talks about like the possibility of simulation, which now that I look back on it, it kind of hooks you in with the E8 thing, and then only the first like 10 minutes is about E8. Anywho, there's that. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. PPP, everybody. This is the Polynation Broadcast, GroundZeroPlus.com. Nerding out on some geometry. Because, I mean, I don't know. We could talk about all the stuff that's going on in the world, but I think it'd be better to figure out how it's made in the first place, I guess. Here's Astro Navigation by Ultramarine on the Polynation Broadcast. GroundZeroPlus.com. Yeah, a lot of songs have growth through repetition, just like that video said.
make everything alright? Am I going crazy? Thinking you could be my baby. Thinking I could make anything, anything. When I got your body next to mine. Say my name over and over. Rock my world from left to right. Baby, you just make everything alright. Am I going crazy? Thinking we could make a baby. Thinking we could do anything, anything. Got your body next to mine. We could do anything, anything. When I got you, baby, by my side. We could do everything, everything. When we're together, it's alright.
Yeah. It's Polynation Broadcast. We're live. Still. We're live until 5 p.m. Eastern Time, that is, every Saturday and Sunday, starting at 2. I'm your host, Polly G, Paul Sinclair, Dude, Hey, Yo. The list goes on. I have many pronouns. I'm going to write them all down one day and spend 5 minutes reading them all. And they all work, I think. There's Earl, there's Duke, King. I mean, that's kind of a presumptuous one, but there's that one. That's a pronoun, kind of. You gotta bend the pronoun meaning a little bit for a lot of these, but that's what's gonna make it funny, I hope. That's what we call a joke in the works, I guess. I got some killer tunes coming up. I just kind of skipped ahead and looked, because sometimes I don't always remember what I put in here, but I put a lot of my favorites in here today. Probably just because I haven't heard them in a while, and I get exposed to so much new music every week that it's hard to keep track of what I liked. I feel like I'm forgetting songs that I liked, and I'm trying to do a better job of that, keeping those ones aside, because I don't know what it is about some songs, for me at least. I get a different vibe from them. They always invoke the same feeling, and it's almost as if these songs can be used as like tools for mental health. Not suggesting I'm crazy, but I would rather listen to a death metal song than take a gun into a school. Let's put it that way. It's like a tool. Not that I would get that angry. But you know, some people do that. Maybe they should just listen to some Car Bomb. There you go, listen to some Car Bomb. Which actually reminds me, I was gonna do like a segment of the evolution of metal, because yesterday in the Zoom chat at groundzeroplus.com, they do a Zoom chat every month, and I wanted Clyde's opinion on, like, where do you draw the line between rock and metal? And I don't think a half hour or a little segment would do it justice. However, that being said, I know a lot of people that don't like metal. However, that being said, it's not my job to please everybody. So I think next weekend we will do a show about the evolution of metal, at least from my perspective, and how I think. I mean, even we mentioned in the chat yesterday on the Zoom meeting that, like, some people consider Led Zeppelin to be heavy metal, but then you listen to, like, Going to California or something like that, or That's the Way off Led Zeppelin 3. It's not heavy metal at all. But then you listen to the Immigrant Song, and it kind of is. So my theory is that somewhere around the late 60s and 70s, they started extracting metal from rock. I hope that makes sense, and I think I can do a whole show, which will clearly I won't be posting this show on YouTube because I'll get nailed 6 ways from Sunday. Forgive me. So it'll be exclusively here at groundzeroplus.com, where you can listen for free or become a member and get in the greenhouse. Which brings me to my next choice, or my next point, I should say. And that is, in about 40 minutes, I will stop the show. But it's not for a bad reason or anything. It's just to shout out the greenhouse, the people that come in here every week, the supporters of Ground Zero Plus and the Polynation broadcast, that hang out in the greenhouse here. That's the chat room for members. And we stop the show at 4:20 p.m. Eastern. That's my time. And hey, it's always 4:20 somewhere, right? And shout out the greenhouse and appreciate the supporters. So we'll do that, as always. And plenty more tunes. What else do we got going on here? Yeah, just plenty more tunes, I guess. Unless anybody has anything they want to talk about, feel free to drop it in the greenhouse. I can talk about anything, really. And we're just chilling. So that's what we do. Here's It Takes a Thief by Thievery Corporation on the Polynation broadcast. GroundZeroPlus.com.
Music Corporation.
Polynation Broadcast, groundzeroplus.com. That was Netzanet, maybe, by Mulatu Astake. See, this is why I don't read well in English when your name's not English and you're not using English. Like, it doesn't help to spell a non-English word in English. So sometimes I just can't do it, folks. I'm sorry. I like that tune, though. And I wanted to talk about this just briefly. Because, I mean, when you don't have a lot to talk about, inevitably it always ends up talking about the weather. And it's hot. And it's hot for a lot of people. And it's been hot for a lot of people for a long time. At least in North America. But here's the thing. This is going to have a trickle-down effect. Because what's happening is when we do get rain, it's so all at once that it does a lot of damage to crops. Does quite a bit of damage, actually. And crops that are out in, 100 acres of field, they don't stand a chance because there's nothing to shelter them. So that happens. But also what happens is we're not really getting enough rain in the breadbasket. So yields are going to be down. What does that mean? Well, just look forward. That's all I'm saying. Just look forward. Predict. If yields are going to be down, you're going to probably have a harder time finding it, and if you do, you're going to have a harder time paying for it. Or you could learn how to grow your own. There's quite a few different ways to grow your own food. And even if you're not growing your own food, I don't think a lot of people have the resources to grow enough food to sustain themselves. Let's say you're living in an apartment. Yeah, cool. You're not going to be able to grow enough food you're still going to have to buy food. But eating the food that you did grow will give you a kind of gratification that if you've never done it before, you should try it. And you can supplement your grocery expenditures. Then you'll get better at it. Maybe you'll have 4 tomato plants the next year. Then you won't have to buy tomatoes for the whole summer. Because if we don't start moving our agriculture indoors where it's protected from things like this, whether you want to climate change, global warming, it doesn't matter what you call it. What matters is what you do about it. There's a really cool farm up here close to where I live in a place called King City. And I don't know how many acres this building is. It's massive. Probably wouldn't stand up to a tornado. But we don't tend to get tornadoes in that neighborhood, let's put it that way. This thing is totally automated. It can grow a ridiculous amount of lettuces and greens, and it's all completely automated. Every single seed, every single substrate is precisely calculated, moved through these conveyor belts. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And apparently they're doing that in other countries. Because I believe they modeled this after I think they're doing it somewhere in the States. Likely somewhere where it's cold. That would make the most sense, right? Because if you can control your environment, why wouldn't you want to grow during the winter? It just makes not only business sense, but just, I mean, if you live in a cold climate, you just doubled your growing season. And depending on what you're growing, you could potentially even 4x that. That's the future of agriculture. Automated indoor. And we're going to have to figure out a way to make structures that can stand up to the weather. And maybe sacred geometry can help with that. I'm just spitballing here. But one thing I do really wish I had right now is rain. Heavy, but not in weight. And that's what the name of this song is. And it's by a band called El Rain. GroundZeroPlus.com. This is the Polynation Broadcast. We'll be back in 20 minutes to shut out the greenhouse.
49 fucking years old.
It's not about getting drunk only. It's the only groove with a very keen sense of how very, very short life is.
Here's one of my favorites. It's called Clarion by Ben Lucas Boysen. Be back in about 10 minutes. Shout out the Greenhouse, groundzeroplus.com. Become a member, get in the Greenhouse, support independent radio and free thinking, and the mycelium of underground sound known as the Polynation Broadcast.
inspired everybody I know.
The drums here and the bass, like overdubs and keys, all kinds of effecty synth stuff on there.
It changed their lives. It inspired everybody I know. Everybody I know.
It's groundzeroplus.com. We're live. There's a huge delay. Anyways, it's that time, 4:20 p.m. Eastern. Stop the show in the greenhouse on the Polynation broadcast to shut out said greenhouse. And that's over here at groundzeroplus.com. And if you become a member, you join, you click on the members content, go down to chat room, and then you're in the greenhouse. And that's where we are. And that's who I'm going to shout out right now. We've got Chris Francis in there from Ground Zero, the architect. We got Mitch Durbin. Seems to have a bit of a green thumb. I didn't know that about you, Mitch. We got Miss B, the gift queen, Barbani. Sunspots is in there. Good to see you again, bud. Got Mike Mont. Seems to be a good cook today. Knows about the ice cube tray trick. We got Dats in Focus in there. Good to see you, Dats. Discord brother. We've got Zero in there. Good to see you again. B. Kauska's in there. Good to see you. We've got Mad Catter. I think Mad Catter's becoming a regular. It's really good to see you again. We've got Matthew Lyon. I don't think I've seen your name before. Welcome to the greenhouse, my friend. I hope you're enjoying the music. We've got JG in here. Now, I don't know who that is, but I know who they're trying to be if it isn't him. And we've got Rich Smith also in here. Another brother from the Discord. Thanks everybody for tuning in and hanging out in the greenhouse. And while we're on the topic, I might as well. I got called out. I have a confession to make, and this happened in the greenhouse. And you would think somebody that, you know, calls his chat room after a greenhouse would have like a lot of plants and stuff. Well, this year, it wasn't in the cards this year. I didn't really plant anything, but I did leave something in the ground from last year. So it's not a total loss. And what I did was, last year was the first time I tried to grow carrots outside, and it worked. I ate some carrots. They were good, and it was the multicolored ones. So like some of them were yellow and orange and purple, whatever. But what I did was, because carrots are, you plant them and they don't make seeds until the next year. So I left a couple of them in the ground. And that's the only thing I've got going. And they've flowered, so they should seed soon. And I'll have non-genetically modified organic carrot seeds. And I'm guessing, this is just ballpark, probably about, I'm going to say at least 2,000 seeds. And I can't eat 2,000 carrots. So, but I mean, yeah, that's the only thing I got going this year, because it would be really hard actually in this climate to keep your plants watered. I mean, the water almost evaporates before it hits the ground. It's so hot here right now. But I'm not complaining. There's no complaining in the greenhouse, just like there's no crying in baseball. I did have a tune I wanted to play here after that. Big thank you again to all the supporters, groundzeroplus.com. Without your support, this would be very difficult and not even close to the same amount as fun. I hope that made sense. There we go. Okay, cool. So I got lots of music lined up. Yeah, I guess we're in for another week, aren't we? It's Monday tomorrow. Yeah, save your motivation for Monday. Don't do anything today. Just relax. Put your ducks in a row. 'Cause Monday needs more ducks than most days. Here's Fast Asleep by TM Juke on the Polynation Broadcast, groundzeroplus.com.
And now, on today's program.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
There's a lot of things you never said. Did you hear in your mind? Did you hear them in your mind? Or did you feel it inside? There's a connection that never fades away. Signals passing over. Warm water. There's a destroyed city deep down there. Nothing else but the fish drying on the beach. The salty skin. I'm picking up these pieces before the wind blows this all away.
Thanks for listening, everybody. GroundZeroPlus.com, Polynation Broadcast. I'll see you next weekend. Don't let the week get to you. And help the week if you can.
somehow, individually, we have to reclaim our experience. The real message, more important even than the psychedelic experience, the real message that I try to leave with people in these weekends is the primacy of direct experience. That as people, the real universe is within your reach, always.
Yo, lately I think I've been seeing glimpses of God. Zero latency, demystification, split the mirage. Sound waves make the brain feel like it's getting massaged. Shout out Sona on the keys, we too fly to fit a facade in. I'm inspired whenever the clock spin. Most times I'm on the train to where my thoughts in. In my own world, to the mind, I'm a locksmith. Chester Watson in another life, a psychologist. In this one, I'm around more trees than a botanist. Anti-hero, see both sides of opposites. The melancholy optimist, that's where my spot exists. I think of this life rewatching Metropolis. Lately I think I've been seeing glimpses of God. Zero latency, demystification, split the mirage. Like Anubis, how I'm holding the scales, weighing the odds. Emotion comes into play, but I mainly base it on thought. An epiphany or beginning apocalypse when the silence is deafening. How do you try to soften it? Evolve with the landscape like the ostriches. I just might invest in some handmade native moccasins. Cactus jack like a barbed wire bat, hardwired to the fashion I don't like to mismatch. I love ugly on me and my blood, had to tat it. I grew up around holy people, some hustlers and savages. I'ma rap as long as they muster the cabbages. In the cave rolling, smoking where the dragon lives. I'm making the music for the soul, that's where my passion is. Eloquence in the beat and I'ma leaving and be crackling. Lately I think I've been seeing glimpses of God. Zero latency, demystification, split the mirage. I think I've been seeing glimpses of God. I've been seeing glimpses of God. Lately I think I've been seeing glimpses of God. Zero latency, demystification, split the mirage. I think I've been seeing glimpses of God. I've been seeing glimpses of God. I see God. When I look at my mother's eyes, I see God. When I look at my girlfriend stare at the sky, I see God. When the women around me are giving life, I see God. When my little sister tell me she alright, I see God. When I stare at the stars middle of the night, I see God. When people support at shows after a flight, I see God. When I pray to the cosmos wrong or right, I see God. When I get opportunities to shed light, I see God. Whenever I hear one of my brothers laugh, I see God hold me back. Whenever I'm getting mad, I see God hold me up. Whenever I'm getting sad, I see God all the time, and I know that He see me back. Lately I think I've been seeing glimpses of God's. Lately I think I've been seeing glimpses of God.
You think you're the last woman on Earth? Never haven't thought about that. Yeah, well, you better start things.
Weather reportのレコードが